No, that's not too just sort of sombre, but hello and welcome to the programme which for the last 25 years has been the place where the UK's leading political commentators debate the big themes of the week. Alongside them, the foreign correspondents who blog, pod, broadcast and yes, even today, still write for audiences back home from the Dateline London. It may be our final edition, but we're still looking forward, not back. Leaders and their future. After Liz Truss told her Finance Minister, the Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, to go, how long before British Conservatives force her to do the same? Biden or Trump, who will win a second term in the White House, or might someone else get the chance of a first? And can China survive a third term for President Xi? In the studio, Jef McAllister, Time magazine's White House correspondent during the Clinton years, and then chief of the magazine's London bureau. He and his wife now run their own international law firm. Jef, I was struck listening to, in the last hours of Friday, to some of those people who had previously supported Liz Truss, now saying one backbench Conservative veteran, Conservative MP, told us at the BBC, I don't doubt her sincerity, he said. He's somebody who voted for her and was supporting her almost from the start, but I am concerned about her lack of resolve. So she's disappointed the people who supported her. By compromising in this way, by slinging her Chancellor over the side, has she a chance perhaps of persuading some of those who didn't support her that she can do it?
Well, she's not widely known for her persuasive powers. She did not have very many MPs on her side when she started the leadership contest.
I think it was about 50 out of kind of 200 and something.
And I mean, really, if you look this incompetent this quickly in a party which, after all, has a reputation for being ruthless at staying in power, this just is not a good look. And it's also particularly perverse that here she was giving the banks, giving the financial sector lots of kisses in bankers' bonuses and lower corporation tax rate and other lower tax rates, and they reject it. So, where does she go from here? It's crystallized, I think, this sense about the British economy that Eunice is talking to. In 2016, Britain's economy was 90% of Germany's. It's now under 70% of Germany's. That's a pretty short time. There's been COVID, but there's also been Brexit. There's been low productivity that's been a consistent problem for the British economy. Just lowering taxes doesn't do that. She thought she had the program that could unite everybody, and she had 2 years before the next election to have anything happen. And now, what is she left with? So I think, is she a dead woman walking? I wouldn't go that far, but she has to pull something out. And the press conference today doesn't look like she's got an awful lot of bright ideas. How could she? She had them all last week.
Let's talk about what's happening in the United States. Jef, we've got the US midterm elections coming up, about kind of a month from now, slightly less. It's not a time for politicians in the United States to adopt brave positions. They have to adopt positions that will guarantee that their supporters are behind them. But we had Joe Biden kind of taking the bull by the horns this week and saying, I am up to the job. I turn 80 next month. I'm up to the job. If Donald Trump stands again as Republican candidate, I will beat him. It was a confident message. And at the moment, at least, it feels the Democrats have got a bit of a spring in their step. But is that justified, given that Donald Trump remains a live political threat to Mr. Biden?
There's two sets of problems. One is the larger Trump problem and how he does in presidential terms. The other is the immediate political problem of the midterms. Midterms generally are not widely voted on. They're bad for the party in power. And there's high inflation and all the things that we know about that would be dragging down the Democrats, and they seem to be. But on the other hand, the Democrats are energized because they're scared of Trump, as they remain, and there's been the ruling about abortion and fear of what the Supreme Court's going to do next time. So the smart money now says the Republicans will retake the House, after which they'll do 1 million investigations of the Biden administration and try to slow everything down for the election. And the Democrats may retain the Senate, but it's still anybody's guess. It's volatile. Then the interesting question of what does that mean for who runs for president? Trump is definitely giving every sign that he's going to run. And Biden is now giving every sign that he wants to run and is going to run.
Even though the Cap Harris poll last month suggested that 67% of voters thought he shouldn't.
Well, that's right, but Trump's only slightly less.
Yes, 57%, yeah.
And we have this problem of, getting rid of a sitting prime minister difficult, getting rid of a sitting president impossible. When you are the sitting president, how anybody comes up in your own party to try to defeat you, it'd be a bloodbath. And so if he wants the nomination, it's probably his, unless it's such a drubbing, let's say, in the midterms that it just looks like no one buys the Joe Biden argument, which is that kind of normal Joe is enough to beat the abnormal Donald Trump. It worked the last time. He won by 7 million extra votes, and there's an argument that he can still have this coalition going. The Democrats are not any less scared of Trump. Now, Trump also has internal opposition. Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, does really look like he wants to run and is positioning himself as angry and as much of a cultural warrior as Trump, but without the possible indictments and other difficulties.
A kind of competent Trump.
That's right.
Like the one who isn't going to find the whole business of government too difficult to do and find it hard to focus on the boring stuff.
No, that's right. But Trump's acolytes still are dominant, and you can't get very many Republicans to say anything bad about him, even in the wake of all the January 6 hearings, where it's clear that he had the plan to denounce the election months in advance and then did everything he could to keep himself in power.
And to be fair, maybe we weren't all looking, but he denounced the 2016 election as well. This has been a line he's pursued for years, and you could argue usefully, but we perhaps didn't pay as much attention to it when he used to say we thought it was, kind of flim-flam, but actually it was perhaps actually a strategy.
Yes, he was laying down a possible escape route then. And when you're president, it's a lot easier to use the organs of government to try to keep yourself in power than when you're the candidate. So I think it's still, I can't see how any Republican can support Donald Trump, honestly. I think he's treasonous, he's seditious, he's dangerous, he's shown himself to be totally beyond the pale. Nevertheless, he was right. I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they still vote for me. And that is a continual problem that is going to give him an advantage. I have to give him the pole position for the Republican nomination.
Now, let's talk about another leader apparently not facing constraints, but perhaps there are some constraints, because we had these protests in China at the end of the week, which were to do, Eunice, with people putting up banners effectively saying, we don't want the lockdowns, we don't want the restrictions. Some of them said we don't want we want freedom to speak out and all the rest of it. I just wonder what you make of this as President Xi prepares to face the Communist Party's twice-decade Congress, in which most people think it will be a kind of foregone conclusion that he will be given a third term. Jeff, quick last thought. On China.
Well, problems are mounting up, and the fight with the Americans is heating up. I mean, we have whether they've made the right bet on backing Russia with Ukraine is one matter. The Americans are now actually taking quite seriously cutting them off from the semiconductor world, which they need to do their most advanced military equipment and to stay involved in the world economy to the extent that they are. And this is actually a much more severe sanction than the trade wars that Donald Trump introduced. This is going to be very significant and is going to affect their entire supply chain in the information technology industries. And the Americans are going to do it. So I think that is actually serious.
Jeff and Eunice and Steve, thank you very much. Thank you, Terry, very much. Just a word from Michael Goldfarb, who is normally here. He was recording a programme in Lviv in Ukraine last weekend, fell and fractured his femur, and was driven over the border to Poland after treatment, and then put up on Twitter a photograph of the sun setting. 5 minutes later, he says, someone I don't know tweets to invite me to Krakow for wine. I ask how she knows who I am and follows me on Twitter. It's because she watches me on Dateline, and the lady concerned helped get him further medical treatment. So Dateline is seriously good for your health. That's it from all of us, and farewell to Dateline London after 25 years. Our thanks to our editor, Nick Guthrie, who's been with us since day one. From all of you to all of us, goodbye.